Chapter 19 of The Great Cosmic Mother, the Islands of Malta and Gozo. On the islands of Malta and Gozo in the Mediterranean can be seen as the clearest connection between the cave, the tomb, and the temple, all three being the body of the Great Mother. Sometime in the 3rd or 2nd millennium BC, or maybe earlier, an incredibly advanced culture developed on these small and isolated islands, which, situated between the Sicily and Libyan coast, were really right in the center of the ancient world. Malta and Gozo were an ancient sacred center for the religion of the Great Mother. From Europe, from Africa, and from the Aegean and Northeast, pilgrims traveled here, and the sick came back to be healed. Over a period of perhaps 1,000 years, up to 30 huge megalithic temple structures were built on these islands, but there is no remains of houses. Only the caves show any trace of habitation. The amazing architecture of the temples was far beyond its time. Pottery and carvings are found in the ruins, but there is a complete absence of metal, the only tools being rough stone implements and the horns of oxen and goats. Perhaps there was a religious taboo on the use of metal. No weapons were made or used on the islands. Metallurgy began, in fact, as a sacred technology of the goddess. Only ceremonial metals were cut at first. There was much taboo around the use of metals, no doubt, and secrecy about smelting methods. Pagan European witches and Native Americans share an ancient belief that metals interferes with magic. These were stone-oriented people who felt metals blocking and distorting psychic spiritual energy currents. Witches were not supposed to touch iron. Guy Underwood, a British water diviner, says his experiences have shown him that placing a metal object on a blind spring obliterates for a short time all geodetic reactions around it. Water is extremely sensitive to metals, especially heavy metals. The Malta and Gozo temples imitated the rock-cut megalithic tombs of the mainland. They were built in roundish chambers in cloverleaf and crescent designs around an inner courtyard with long connecting courtyards between them. No dead were buried in these temples. Bodies were still interred in caves and rock-cut tombs. But there was only a step from performing ceremonial rites at the cave tombs to building special temples for the veneration of the spirits of the dead. The temples were built with enormous double walls, rubble and earth piled in the space between the inner and outer wall. So, in effect, the temple was still inside the earth. As inside a mountain surrounded by powerful earth currents, similar to a Irichian Oregon chamber, in fact. In myth, Gozo was the island realm of Calypso, the daughter of Uranus. It was on Gozo that the patriarchal hero Ulysses was believed to have stayed, enchanted by the sorceress Calypso for 7 years. In myth, the huge temple of Gigantia, 4th millennia BC, was built by a giant Titan woman with a baby at her breast. Single-handedly in one day, she hauled the huge blocks of stone to the building site and built the temple walls by night. This temple is 90 feet high, and some of its great stone slabs measure 5 yards by 4 yards. Mortar was used on the inside walls, which was then painted with red ochre, the color of rebirth. Some of the megaliths weighed 50 tons, and stone rollers that must have been used to transport the huge blocks have been found by the temple site. The entire population of the island must have worked during many generations to produce this single temple. What were they seeking? Probably what we could call the living darkness, the stillness of the tomb, the breathing silence of the womb of Mother Earth. The chambers, painted blood red, had no sharp angles. All the shapes rounded, molded, and carved in curves and waves. There was no worship of the heavens in these temples and no human sacrifice. There are traces only of animal sacrifice and the pouring of libations. Here, the living and the dead were as close as possible to each other. But the strangest thing is that this temple on the surface of the earth was only the entrance to a still vaster shrine beneath. Legends tell of a huge labyrinth, catacomb, or rock necropolis built under the temple, a city of the dead in which the whole island population ultimately resided. In fact, an enormous labyrinth cave sanctuary has been found, the collective burial tomb of several 7,000 bodies. This mass tomb was built in several stories out of subterranean rock. At its entrance is a trilithon in several story gateway giving access to an underground city, the abode of the perfect ones. Long vaulted corridors, blood-stained with red ochre, led to a deep temple area with its altar, pillars, gateway, and spiral designs painted in red on the roof. It mirrored or echoed the temple built above ground. This was the center of something. And Malta and Gozo, as Malta and Gozo are indeed at the geographic center of the Neolithic great goddess culture, stretching from Africa to Scandinavia, from Sumeria to Spain, or the sunken continent of Atlantis, as some believe. In the sacred space of priestesses of the great goddess, they contacted the spirits of the dead, consulted oracles, prophesized, and performed ritual healing. In the temple, in the temple are huge squatting images of the goddess. These are of the same bulging rounded shape as the temple. In later images, she wears a flounced skirt with small fingers for protection. She holds her arm raised to her breasts. Her head is smaller proportionately than the body and made of a separate material. She wears a blissful expression, peaceful, gracious, and still. She meditates with closed eyes, sitting in a throne, and she has small, delicate hands. The blood of sacrificed animals was poured into a stone vessel with a hollow base standing on the altar, and burning fire ceremonies were also enacted. These secret chambers of the Great Mother, where timeless mysteries were performed, are guided by her eyes, the cosmic symbol of the double spiral inscribed on the ceiling stone. Plant, flower, and animal motifs are carved in the relief walls and altars, and they show strong Cretan influence, evidence of much contact between the islands. The temples were also healing centers. The sick came to sleep in the huge stone chambers. Priestesses and clairvoyant sleep listened to the voices of the underworld. Divination was also acoustic conjuring were practiced. The priestess's disembodied voice from her little chamber hidden in the thick walls reverberated through the vaults via clay pipes and moldings, seeming the voice of earth itself. People came on pilgrimage to sleep in the temple, to have dream communion with the powers of the underworld and the dead, to obtain counsel, wisdom, healing, and clairvoyant knowledge. The temples contained two small figurines of sleeping women, sleeping to dream, to die, to wait for birth and rebirth. They echo the huge pregnant shape of her, who was both impersonal and kind, both familiar and terrible, the earth embodying cosmic strength, mystery, abundance, and paradox. We don't know anything about the people who built these island temples. They were weaponless and so defenseless against warlike pirates who overran them using metal weapons. These conquerors probably came by the way of Sicily, bringing a culture much inferior to that of Malta. They still practice some form of goddess worship, but they burned their dead, showing that they were in transition from matriarchal to patriarchal orientation. Since the Sky Father worshipping nomads of the East also practiced cremation, i.e., they sent the body spirit up to the sky rather than returning it to the earth womb. It is quite possible that Malta and Gozo were schools for priestesses. Such island schools are common in legend. Ancient Celtic myth tells of sacred islands inhabited and ruled by women, where the mysteries were kept and taught. According to Irish texts, the Tuatha De Danann came from such an island in the north, where they had learned science, magic, art, and ancient wisdom from priestesses of the goddess Danu. Druids were buried in ceremonial groves on distant islands. According to the Roman Pomponius Mela, facing the Celtic coast lie a group of islands which take the collective name of Cassiterites, Sina, off the Breton coast. It was renowned for its Gaelic oracle, whose priestesses, sacred for their everlasting virginity, were said to be 9 in number. These priestesses were called Galicians and had magic powers. To unleash the winds and storms by their spells, to metamorphose any animal according to their whim, to cure all disease said to be incurable, and finally, to know and predict the future. But they reserved their remedies and predictions exclusively to those who traveled over the sea and expressly to consult them. They were 9 in number because 9 is the triplicity of 3, the sacred number of the moon goddess. Girls who were to become priestesses were chosen at the age of 9. 9 priestesses are pictured dancing around the Ithphalic young man in a cave painting in the Kogol in northeastern Spain, dating from the Old Stone Age or Gusnian period. Arranged in a crescent, the dancing 9 represent the moon's phases, growing older in a clockwise direction. 3 young girls, 3 strong grown women, 3 dark crones, the oldest with the old moon phase dances, widdershins, counterclockwise. This painting could be 30,000 years old. So primordial is witchcraft. On the sacred island of Avalon, Apple Island, Morgan Le Fay, the fairy, ruled over 9 sisters and taught how plants can be used to cure illness. She knew the art of changing her outward form and could fly throughout the air with the aid of magic feathers. She was one of many renowned shamans practicing ancient women's wisdom on the enchanted island. The temples of Malta and Gozo reveal such legends were based on reality, as legends usually are. All that remains of the Maltese island people are their resonant stone temples, but their religious ideas and rites were similar to those surviving in the mystery cults of classical Greece. Such survival shows that early Christianity's belief in the body's immortality grew from very deep and ancient pre-Indo-European, pre-patriarchal roots. Delphi was another oracular shrine tomb. Located on the Greek mainland, it was ruled over by a spiraling python serpent and a prophetic, the earth death mother. The python was housed on the omphalos, or navel shrine, the navel of the earth, built underground in a beehive shape, originally perhaps deriving from the African masabo, or ghost house. The name Delphi comes from the great snake of the mother. The goddess's most ancient name at Malta, since she was part serpent, and the name comes from the ancient word Delphis, meaning womb, and is now the brand name of a contraceptive foam. Apollo, the patriarchal sun god of classic Greece, was a mythical latecomer to the oracular shrine at Delphi, though now he is always associated with it. Apollo began as an underground oracular hero, in fact, and his name means apple man. In the classic myth, he could not rule at Delphi unless he had slain the sacred python with his arrows or phallic sunbeams, as Zeus had also killed the dragon offspring of the earth goddess at Dodona. But even after slaying the symbolic python, the prophetic Sibyl at Apollo's Delphi remained a woman. Bending over her tripod, inhaling smoke and entering trance, she pronounced her judgments on past, present, and future acts of the Greeks. But Apollo, as harbinger of patriarchal sun god technology, increased the production demand beyond her endurance and human capacity, driving her mad. As John Mitchell has noted, the same policy of artificially inducing and mechanically increasing the Earth's fertility, attempting to mass produce Earth's fruits for profit rather than accepting what is given organically, be found wherever the solar gods assumed management over the ancient shrines of the goddess. Blood was used in the Delphic shrine to feed the ghosts and make them return, to speak prophecy through the Sibyl. The Sibyl drank the blood, producing in herself prophetic ecstasy. Sounds of peepings and mutterings and eerie bat-like voices speaking through her were believed to be the voices of ghosts. This was the function of ancient human and animal sacrifice. The recently dead and more easily recalled from the other world, and not so potentially dangerous as the long dead. Through these dead confidants, the priests gained knowledge of the healing in the future. The bull with its lunar horns was associated with the underground rituals. Bull's blood was believed to be the most potent magic, and diluted with water, it was used to fertilize the fields and the orchards of Crete and Greece. Drunk straight, it was considered a deadly poison to anyone but the sibyl or priestesses of the goddess. Archaically, bull sacrifice took place in a ritual circle of 12 stone herms or pillars at a foot of a sacred hill. Half the bull's blood was sprinkled on the 13th herm of the circle's center. The rest was poured into a large basin, which the priestess drank. The Celts also used bull's blood for divination. Irish poets had to drink bull's blood and then lie down to dream in order to tell the truth.